It's not that we always have to give a directive, but we're trying to, pull out the metaphors and support them with all the materials because a lot of our job and role as art therapists is to increase the imagination, right? And there's often like, I find with some adults anyway, that there has been this kind of like I'm specifically thinking of one client that I actually saw this morning as she was brought up in an environment that creativity and imagination wasn't safe for her. And so it's like to not have had that realm in order to kind of play in and explore, it's really important that we allow a huge diversity of materials, right? And this is what's harder because they can't come to our space and be like, wow, there's paint and there's this. And it's how do we cultivate that? And so by having something like a checklist, it's like we get to have insights into what they have at home and what's available so we can help them broaden out. And I'm not saying that's the same for every person that comes. A lot of people who I see have a lot of materials as well, right? They come and they're like, I'm an artist and I love this. Yes, Erin.
Okay, you're saying to create a checklist that they would then in advance tell you what they had?
Yeah, so I
Okay,
usually
so
do
you
it in
could
the
plan your
intakes.
activities around that.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So then you and you might ask them, are you open to purchasing new materials? But not everybody is. And so then we get to work within what they have, but we also get to have it like we're in their studio, we're in their home environment. So we know all the materials, so we can pull on things if we're like, oh, I want to extend this metaphor in this way. Yeah. Yes, Denise.
So, so would you go through that checklist in the first session? Would you send it to them before? Like, where does the
I
kind of
would do it in the intake or after the intake before our first session. So I get an idea about what they have. Usually, when I start, I do a piece like create yourself as an animal in an environment or create a symbol of self. So it's something, so I could do it in the first session as well. So it's something very, that they can make it in whatever the way they want. But it's so good for us as online therapists to know what is in their environment and what we can use. And, also there's an environmental piece here as well. It's like, well, do we want to create more in the world? Do we want to use more recycled materials? Do we want to use more natural materials? How is that having an impact on how we work as therapists? How is that having an impact on our clients? Like, how do they store their art? Where do they store it? Like, these are all questions that start to come up when we're working in the online environment because it's usual that we have a shelf or a cupboard where we keep all our client art, but in the online environment, we also need to be thinking about the disposal of art as well. Aaron, go for
I
it.
was just wondering, on your list, when you do put that, do you put an other for them to add something that maybe you
Yeah,
didn't think of?
yes, exactly. Exactly. Because we never know. I mean, we don't want to be limited, right? We want to kind of expand our imaginations, but we really do need to know what people have access to. And also maybe sometimes as well, I might ask about things that you don't want to use as well. Because it's like some people are like, I really don't want to get my hands messy. Or,
Yeah.
especially if you're working with kids and the parents are like, no, they're not allowed to do this.
Mm.
But then you see that that's a therapeutic goal and you're like, oh, okay. We might need to get them to work together. So it's, all these different factors and how we can use materials and just know what's there and cultivate that space and that care around that if you are working with parent and child. So it's kind of all these factors. And it just came to me. I want to share one more thing from this section, which is I used to run an open studio in person, and it was primarily focused on recycled materials because we actually didn't have a huge budget. And so what I did was started to create a Pinterest board of things that inspired me and projects that I could bring each week. So I just wanted to share with you just briefly to give some ideas about recycled materials are not limiting to our projects and our inspiration and our clients, right? So like this is just collecting things from outside and creating collage with them. This is toilet rolls, which I absolutely love, creating faces. You wet them and then you scrunch them into the face. And so a lot of these projects are kind of more family orientated, but you can see here like the birds and acorns and dragonflies and collecting natural materials. I actually did this project and it was just such a huge success. I had 30 people making kittens and dogs out of cardboard. which they absolutely loved. I'll also put the link to this board as well, so you can all check it out if you'd like more. So lots of rafts and animals. And look at this. This is like a milk container skull, right? So it's like, and monkeys. And I also the dinosaurs. I did a superhero mask that was incredibly successful. There's some galaxy eggs, prints as well. So you can see I went through different seasons. So you get like all different things for different seasons and different times. Recycle paintbrushes, creating faces and characters out of them, creating book art. Just using like one line to create a cityscape. So, and then this was also one that I really loved as well, is using wire to create figures as well. I also created these ones as well. Actually, we did ones like this. So, and some kids, when I did it, was their first time sewing. So I would say in the online environment, they would need a parent, because there's something that happens when we're working and we need to be there physically. So thinking about those projects that aren't going to create frustration as well.